Welcome to the True Demon Lord show. I am the True Demon Lord, Franco, and today we're going to be looking at part three of our building a competitive demon list. And so I've decided we're going to gradually get to an ending video, or maybe like the last one we just focused on Monster Mash. We kind of looked at a list idea, but we didn't really go into properly building the list. And we're going to do the same here. I'm going to run you through different units. So we're going to be focusing on the MSU build, and by MSU I mean minimum size units. So you're taking basically loads of small units. It's a very scoring heavy list. Um, we're just going to run through units, some of the best choices to take in probably what quantities, what their kind of roles will be. And then might talk about rough list idea, but I don't want to go building lists yet. I don't want to tell you exactly what you should be taking as far as building the list itself. And then we will do in a few more episodes time in this series, we will actually do a list building episode where we're just going to kind of take everything we've spoken about in the last few videos, and we're going to build lists basically and show different versions of different lists and what each list will do, the units in the list, why we've chosen to combine this unit with this unit, etc., etc. So we're going to look at MSU. We're going to just briefly go through what the MSU style list does, how it plays, and then some of the units to take in it. So MSU style list can kind of do a few different things. It can be monster heavy, like 3 to 4 monsters backed by loads of basically MSU scoring units. It's a list that wants to basically score. It can probably do fixed very well, but also tactical as well. Um, or you can kind of shirk the monsters completely, and maybe then that's where you take into more of those mid-based units that do damage, such as more bigger fiend units, blood crushers, etc., etc. But the idea is you're just taking a lot of scoring units. So as you can see, we've basically compiled what I think are the best of the scoring units. We haven't included blood crushers here just because I don't like the 3-man blood crusher units. Um, and so we didn't really look at them because again, the idea here is we're looking at the units in the as they come base points cost without adding extra models on top. So when you're building an MSU style list, you're basically just essentially it's pick one of the other units, the smaller, faster scoring units, or those anywhere between like 60 to 80-ish point units. I'm basically clicking on it 3 times. That's kind of the idea of it. And it works if you know how to play it. You're going to be taking up a lot of real estate on the board. Your damage will lack. So be aware of that. Like you are definitely going to be sacrificing some damage, but that's where you probably this will complement with monsters. While you don't have to take monsters, you can just go all in on just taking loads of units. I do recommend taking about 3 monsters maybe, and to really give you some damage and distraction as well. But yeah, the idea is you're taking a lot of these units to do different jobs. So we have Secretary is actually really good, especially in this type of list. So it moves 14. It is mounted, so it will have to go round walls. It will spend an inch to pivot, but that's not bad with a 13-inch move. It used to be better because it's got like the whips, which is its range attacks, are assault, so that meant it was always eligible to shoot after advancing, meaning it could do like pseudo actions, like your normal like deploy, um, cleanse, etc., etc. Whereas now actions being more specifically specified as a thing that no longer works, but still 14-inch move or 13-inch move with pivot is still really really good. It is T6 with 7 wounds and 4 up so it's actually not an easy profile to get through. Like it can be quite annoying. And then on the charge, it's got 9 attacks, a strength 4 -1 damage, devastating wounds. On the charge, it gets anti-infantry 4 plus, meaning it's now doing death wounds on 4 plus. It's also got, I want to say it's 4 extra attacks, a strength 4 -1 damage lethals. They're okay, but you're looking at the dev wounds on fours against infantry, so it can definitely beat up on some smaller infantry units as well, which is also quite nice. So the idea is you're taking this as like a rush forward, do some secondaries, maybe go into some of those smaller objective holding units in the midfield, and just having incredible speed to do it as well. And OC3 is not terrible. It again, 5 OC1 models that are infantry. This unit can go into, charge, and do a fair bit of damage onto them, even a 10 man, and potentially contest or take the objective off them as well. Fiends, we've just done the Fiend focus. That will probably be out before this video, so check that out if it is. This though, we're talking about just running 3 Fiends. Now, the reason we're talking about 3 Fiends is I still think they're a very good MSU unit, and I think in this type of list, having those 3 units of 3 Fiends will be very nice bully units. They're going to be going forward. You can use them to hit a unit. Again, a lot of units that can be sitting on objectives, like early game. These guys can go on, bully them, if not kill them, do a lot of damage to them. They are OC2 each, so they're pretty good at taking over objectives as well and contesting or just, again, denying primary. And having 5 attacks at strength 5 minus 2 damage with devastating wounds allows them to do a good bit of damage as well. So these guys you're going to be using really as your like ways to really bully those objectives early to mid game. So I think you definitely want to be taking like 2 to 3 of these at least. Well, I say at least 3 to maximum, at least 2, I would say. Then we have Screamers. Now, I am a massive fan of Screamers. You know, they're 3 small 25 mil size bases. They are beasts, so they go through walls. They are circular, so no pivot, and they move 14 with fly. So they're really hard to bog down. They do have 3 attacks, so strength 6 minus 2 damage, which is pretty good. They do hit on 4s. That is their one issue. But you know, once they hit, they can actually do a good bit of damage. Like we said, they move 14 as well, so it's really hard to stop them getting to places. And if they move over stuff, they can kick it and do some mortal wounds on 4+. That's nice. It's like a nice little bonus. You don't really rely on that. Um, but I struggle to not have 3 units of these in my list, even not even like my heavy MSU list, but even my list where I'm quite focused on Fiends. 3 units of 3 for me is just really nice primary secondary scoring, probably more secondary scoring. So yeah, I think in an MSU list you want 3 units of these guys. Nurglings. So Nurglings obviously are no longer as useful as they used to be. They used to be able to do actions. They no longer can because they are OC0 and Pariah Order couldn't, which is sad, but they've still got a place in this list. So they can infiltrate still, which is good. That will allow you to block out other units' infiltrators. This is potentially stopping you from being blocked down turn 1 by units that infiltrate and then move forward and tag your stuff or even hit you quite hard. Um, Also stopping scout units, because scout units can cause you some real issues. So by just deploying a unit of 3 Nurglings 9 inches in front of this scout unit means they can't now move forward. And by scout unit, we mean a unit that can make a pre-game move of generally anywhere between 6 to 9 inches. But because of, you know, scout only lets you make that move if you don't end within 9 inches of an enemy model. So using Nurglings to pre-deploy forward is a good way to stop that. I think 1 to 2 units of Nurglings is good in any list. I'd take 1 unit still just for that, like answer to other infiltrators and answer to scouting units as well. And also the -1 to hit aura, just like the Fiends. There's obviously the Nurglings affects everything that's not monster or vehicle. The Fiends affect everything that isn't vehicle or titanic. So bear that in mind. Then we have Flamers. So to be honest, Flamers and Screamers are very similar. Both T for 3 wounds for our Brimvan. They're both in the same size base. Obviously the Screamers are far more speedy. They move 14, whereas the Flamers move 9. Flamers, again, similar to like the Nurgles, used to be a lot more useful in Leviathan compared to Pariah because they can fall back and shoot, which meant before they would be able to fall back and do cleanse or deploy or something like that. Whereas now that isn't the case. But as a small drop-in unit that can drop in, do an action, and then potentially overwatch something that's quite squishy coming towards them with 3d6 shots, is still quite nice. So even them in like the elder matchup or the sister matchup is still pretty handy. I think a couple units of screamers, a couple units of flamers in a very MSU heavy list is still incredibly viable. But if I had to choose between screamers and flamers, for me personally, screamers do win that battle 9 to 10 times out of 10. Then we have a Beast and Nurgle. Now, I think units of 2 Beast and Nurgle are absolutely useless and pointless. I don't recommend taking it. But like I said, we're talking about MSU. So single beast, I think are fantastic. 70 points, toughness 9, 7 wounds, 5 up in one. If your opponent does not kill the beast by the end of the phase, it is just straight back up to 7 wounds again. So they can be really, really annoying to deal with. And just dropping them in the backfield, especially in a position where your opponent's going to struggle to get anything that they really care about into them. And even if they go and tag them up, they've got 6 attacks, they do hit on 4s, but strength 6 minus 2, 2 damage, and devastating wounds. Like they will beat up on small little units, and then if your opponent's putting anything substantial into them to try and deal with them, even if they kill the beast, that means the unit's now been pulled out of position, which is fine. And like we said, they're not too big of a footprint. Like their footprint is probably very similar in size to like three um 32 mil bases together. So that's not terrible. It's a good little size to denizens of the warping with 3 inches, do behind enemy lines, or deploy or sorry, establish locus, very handy to have, and I think 2 to 3 pieces is incredibly handy. Then we have three units. A unit of oh, God, 5 flesh hounds. There we go. It's because I used to like love running 3 units of 5. I do like the flesh hounds. Now they feel a similar role to the Fiends as bit of a skirmisher unit, but the damage is obviously nowhere near. They chuck out 3 attacks, showing 5 minus 1 damage. They can heroic for free. Now that's something to remember. So one of your flesh hand units can make a heroic intervention move for 0 CP. Um, and that's really, really handy, being able to keep them near any of your other units and then just be able to move them to heroic intervention them to get onto an objective, or even to now cause your opponent to no longer be as confident as killing what they went into is quite handy. They're also incredibly good for move blocking, which is what I love them for. They're on obviously oval bases, but they've got a 12-inch move, so an 11-inch with a free pivot, and obviously they can advance. Being able to throw them out, block out in a really like 5 of their small oval bases is actually a lot of coverage you can get to block out and screen. And I really, really, really like that. And they were very for 70 points. You do not mind doing that and blocking out a 200 or 300 or point unit. And they're very good in the demon matchup. Like have a lot of heavy monsters. So I've played into a lot. I played into when I was running 3 units of 5 of them. I played into a lot of demon mirrors, and I was running through Shalapsies, obviously as you would expect, and just kept throwing 5 flesh hounds in front of her and inch away, letting her charge, kill the dogs, and then doing it again. And it was just my opponent was just so frustrated, like 140 points worth of flesh hounds, stop 450 points worth of Shalapsi from doing anything meaningful, so substantial. Is just funny and good. And then we've got 5 Seekers. Now, Seekers are a unit I will admit I haven't got a lot of practice with. I've done some practice game with them. I've not actually taken to events, but I've got practice games in with them, so I know how they play, obviously. Um, they're really handy for 80 points. Like they're only 2 wounds at T4, 5 up in one. They're not that tough. Combat wise, they're a demon at 3 attacks, strength 4, minus 1 damage, and then a couple more attacks at lethal hits 4, 0, 1, hitting on 4s. But they move um 14 inches. I don't know why. Someone just told me they move 16 inches. I'm pretty sure it is a 14-inch move. They can obviously advance and they get to. Oh, this is where bloody Seekers. I forget. So I'm pretty sure it is. Is it reroll wound? Reroll wound. Sorry, reroll advance and charge. Right, I'm pretty sure that's what it is. Reroll advance and charge. They have a 14-inch move. They can obviously get +1 to charges with their icon. Not their icon, sorry, their instrument. My knowledge just completely left me for a second and my head completely went. But the good thing, so obviously again, 14-inch move, can reroll advanced charges. That's pretty good. They are mounted, they're on oval bases, so they'll have to go around walls, but again, a 13-inch move with a pivot is fine. Key to the Seekers is they have Scout 9, which means at the beginning of the game they can make a 9-inch move before the first battle round. Now, If you deploy them on the line and your opponent goes first, you can either pull them back or pull them forward behind a bit of terrain. Fine. If you go first, you research them up. These guys are great for doing early actions, getting you early engaged, should you have it or should you take it as a fixed. And also just surging forward and blocking your opponent in their deployment zone turn one, tagging units that are on the front line, being able to just again move block with their base sizes is quite handy. So a real big utility unit, and in a list where I was taking a lot of like MSU and essentially just trying to block out the board and just flood it, then 2 to 3 units of these guys definitely something I would take. So yeah, so that's all the good MSU units. Now, obviously, you're going to probably take some battle line as well. Play bearers and pink horrors are fantastic in this. Bloodletters, if you're taking a Bloodmaster and Rainmasters, but now we're moving into a bit of a different realm. But yes, so you get the idea of the type of units that you're taking in. Always, when you're playing this list, always think of secondaries. How can you score containment turn one? How can you score sabotage turn one? How can you score established locus turn one? Can you take a set fixed? Can you take established locus engage or behind? Etc. etc. How can you make the most of uppy downies for Realm of Chaos, Denizens of the Warp for the 3-inch deep strike, etc. 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 Then you think of, do you want to take monsters? I recommend 3 monsters. Great Unclean One's definitely one that goes in here. Bellicle's still good, but I think the MSU list maybe not as much. Um, so yeah, I mean, I definitely keepers are something that pop into my head for this type of list because speed, and I feel like speed is definitely what you want to have in this type of list. So, hopefully you've been able to take something from that. And again, like we said, we're not going to sit here and build lists now. We're giving you some ideas and how you can build a list, but we are going to definitely do a video where we just sit down and list build basically. So, thank you for tuning in. Check out Facebook and Instagram like always to keep up to date with everything. And please leave a like and subscribe. It's free. It takes a few seconds, and it is massively appreciated. It helps out the channel. We're growing incredibly fast. Yeah, and we will catch you all in the next one.